Hi, this is Ben Ruegg, Head of Music at Waiuku College, and welcome to our channel, which is called Muse, where we talk to New Zealand artists, bands and songwriters about how they wrote songs that they've released, and also get a little bit of a history about how they became a musician and what they do. So check out our first interview today with JP from Erase. JP from Erase, we have him here. He's going to discuss with us today about his songwriting for a song called Little Blue Dot. And hello to you, JP.
Hello, thanks for having me, bro. Really happy to be here.
Most welcome. So we got a 10-minute video. We have 10 minutes, and so the first couple of minutes, I just want you to talk to us and the kids about how you got into music, where you went to school, etc. And I might interject every now and then and ask a question. The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. I guess the best place to start would be high school, where I started playing guitar. I actually left it pretty late in the piece and started playing pretty much halfway through my last year of high school. I kind of quickly realised that it's about the only thing in life I was excited about. So I decided to go gung-ho and try and get into a foundation course at Mains, or Music and Audio Institute of New Zealand. So I think I'd learnt probably 80% enough to do that, and almost got laughed out of the interview. But I think they could see the passion that I was bringing to it and gave me a shot, which I'm grateful for. And then, 3 years later, I had a diploma in music performance, contemporary music performance. And then from there, I sort of spent probably 6 or 8 years trying to build a career with music at the center of it. And that included 5 years working in retail. And now, as a career, I am a guitar teacher, so I basically have a guitar in my hand 5 days a week, which I'm really grateful for. And also, along the way, I started a band called Armed in Advance, which started out called Stitches. And Armed in Advance, we managed to get a handful of songs onto the Rock FM, and we
Awesome.
Played some high-profile shows. We opened for I Am Giant a few times. I toured with Villainy. Opened for POD, which was a huge highlight for me. Opened for Skillet and for Drowning Pool as well. Drowning Pool on the eve of my 34th birthday or something like that.
That's impressive, man.
It was wild. And then unfortunately, I guess a coincidence of a bunch of things, including my life events and changes in geographical locations of band members, brought Armed in Advance to its natural end, probably about into 2018, I think it was.
Okay.
And since then, I've been investing much more heavily into Arrays, which was a solo project that I started near the end of Armed in Advance, as kind of a way of expressing the anxious amount of music that I want to create while I was with a band that just wanted to focus a bit more on the music it already had.
Sure.
And so they put an EP out and a couple of records as well with that. And I've had some fun along the way. Had some great support from independent radio, and made it to the charts and single charts here and there, and made some good friends along the way as well.
Awesome, man. So, what age do you reckon you started playing guitar? Is it high school you mentioned?
I think I was 17.
Wow.
Yeah, 17. I don't know. I was I spent high school basically playing Xbox.
as we did.
So I hope you guys aren't doing that.
Wow. Okay, that's cool, man. That's good. So this show is pretty much about talking to you and other songwriters about how they approach songwriting. It's one of the things that I'm very passionate about as a songwriter, and something that I want to be able to share with my students. But it's always great to get outside opinions and to find out what they do. So I've asked you for a song, and the song that you've given me is a song called Little Blue Dot, which you'll be able to hear when you follow the links in the video. You'll be able to go and visit that and have a listen to that. But basically, what I've heard and what I want to talk to you about is where this idea came from, how it started, how it developed, just all that sort of neat stuff. Because a lot of people, when they write songs, they have different approaches. And I know how my approach works, but that's not always the right way. And everyone's different. So I want to give the floor to you, and as I say, I might interject at times and ask you some further questions about it. So yeah, talk to us a little bit about this song.
Okay, man. So Little Blue Dot is, I guess, the track I actually sort of started writing mainly around the framework of the structure. So I really wanted it to start out low, dynamically, and building up into a climax of full on guitars and an emotional sort of peak near the end. That was kind of before I had any melody or guitar ideas or synths or anything. That was just the vision for it.
Okay, so
also because
jump into something there. So when you're writing music, do you typically write all the music first, then come back and add vocal and melody and the lyrics and stuff, and see where the music takes you, or what's your approach there?
I think it's a case by case basis, and often I think the lyrics and the vocal melody, more importantly, is being written as I write the song.
Sure.
So it's kind of like I'll write a riff or a section. I'll be like, there'll already be a little melody weaving its way in there that I'll kind of have in mind and I'll be getting excited about, and then those melodies start to crystallize as the instrumentation will start finishing. But actually, I tend to write guitar, drums, and bass parts for the song, then put vocal melodies in, and then sweeten it with lead guitar and synths and stuff afterwards. So I think it's really all built around with the vocals at the center. They've got the rhythm instruments as a foundation, and then everything else that goes after the vocals is to support what the vocals have done and not to interfere with. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that. So that's fantastic advice. And with what do you think the idea was that started this song? You mentioned at the beginning you kind of had a vision for how it was going to be structured, and you can totally tell at the end it does become like this big crescendo of guitars, roaring more than they had at the beginning. But what do you think was the main thing that got you into the point where you're like, you could hear how the rest of the song was going to be, flesh out?
Well, I mean, I started it with the bass, and actually the bass guitar was actually the reason I started with the bass in mind was because a lot of the songs on the record that I was in the process of writing, already started with vocals or started with drums or whatever it is, or guitar, and I was sort of like, I want a song that starts with bass. So it kind of starts with a bit of a, preconception of it, which is a little, contrived, but
sure.
But from that point, I don't think I really had any solid ideas.
Okay.
I think you could probably hear it in the structure. You can probably hear it all developing if you take it with that in mind, because I would have added layers by the structure. So by the, what's the word I'm looking for? By the section. So like there'll be more happening in the second verse than there would be in the first chorus, probably.
Yeah, because you have, that's like, so at the beginning you have the bass, then you have your vocals come in, then you have like some synthy sort of stringy sounds at the back, and then by the time you get to just before verse 2, which I would call like, say, like a hook, that's when the drums come in, and then you go back into verse 2. But there's also that little chord change sequence happening there, driven by the bass and the synth, so, before you go into the hook where the drums come in and then the vocals come back in, right?
Right.
Yeah, so here's an interesting thing I found about your song, which I really liked. When I sat down at the keyboard and was learning it, it's a commonly used progression. So you're going from, in this case, you're going from A to D. Was it A? What am I? Hold on a second, I'm making this up now. But yeah, was it A, then D, and then C, and then B? Is that right? What is it? Let me just find it. Because
I think there's the low note happens I think the second one's a low note, which is a D. I think I might be wrong.
We've got great singing voices, us music teachers. So here we go. Here, this is I don't know if you can hear that, but I can definitely hear this. Yeah, you go down.
I can't hear it.
Yeah, so you're You're jumping down. So it's and then you jump up to C, but then when you go back down, you kind of go to this B, which is I'm pretty sure
that's right.
Yeah, and what I like about that is it's real common for people to do it the other way, where they kind of just go back to the note that they've gone between, and I found that very interesting. Yeah.
I think one of the best bits of advice I ever got from someone probably at music school was sometimes a good way to write a song that's a little bit left of center is to take what works and screw it up.
Well, that's good. And the other thing I
Yeah.
really like about the song that I've listened to is that you do a thing where you kind of you're singing a major third, and then you go
Yeah.
up to the fourth, and then when you come back down, you go back down to the minor third.
Yeah.
Which to
Yeah.
me is like, those are cool things that I really like my students to think about. And how did that just happen naturally? You're not think we never think in theory when we write. It's just a way
No.
of describing it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's 100% right. But also, that's something that my soul is obsessed with. I almost have to try and not write that in some songs, just so that it's not in every single one of my bloody songs. But yeah, I love the interplay of the major and minor thirds in songs. It feels like very powerful to me.
Oh, it's extremely. It's a very. Those to me, as I talk to my students, they're like the emotive notes. Your minor and
Yeah,
your major third. Those are the ones that really give emotion to things.
right.
So no, and I really like that, and I really like the way
That's
that
cool.
the song, as you say, builds up. There's a couple of other things. We're running out of time, but a couple of other things I really like, and I want to talk to you about. I'm so sorry that you can't hear this as we're recording, but and I'll just talk to it because the kids can have a listen to it. There's a guitar motif that you're playing, and when the hook comes in, and your bass is changing, but that guitar motif is staying the same. And it's the same thing that happens, I believe, in the second verse. I'm just gonna just quickly play it so I can refresh my memory.
If you give me a time code, I can check that out.
Yes, we'll do that. Okay, so 121 is when that comes in. That's when you've jumped as you're kind of structuring. You've gone from this like softer part. You've gone through this other chord progression to give it a different vibe. Then you move into this.
So it's the is that lead hook, right?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's another
Yeah.
part where you have what we call in music like an ostinato, something like like a riff
Yeah.
or a motif, but
That's in the verse, right?
yeah, I think so. It stays the same, but the bass is changing.
No, that's that.
Underneath.
Yep.
Okay, so those are all interesting things that I really like.
Cool. Thank you.
So, what advice would you have for kids that are or like students that are wanting to write music and they sit down like this song came out of that bass riff? What advice would you have for a kid that that picks up a guitar, they play something, and then they realize like, oh, this could go somewhere? What advice would you give them to how could they flesh it out?
Yeah, I think you have to trust your gut, and the more that you write songs, the more data your gut will have. So don't be afraid of writing and finishing a song, and if it's not perfect, to start another one.
Sure.
Because in my experience, those imperfect finished pieces that you have in your hard drive that you almost don't want to listen to again, they find a way if they've really good ideas, they find their way into a new song, sometime down the line when you've got the technical ability to execute it better.
Sure.
So just keep writing, and when you are feeling something, and this is for the music theory heads, don't theory your way out of a good idea, because I love writing stuff that is left of center, but sometimes the best thing you can do is write where your heart's going. Don't get in your head about it.
Sure. Do you ever send your ideas to people to kind of get a little bit of an idea of where it's going? Do you get, especially at school? The funny thing for you though, JP, is that you didn't really start playing guitar until you kind of in your final couple of years, even your final year, right?
My final year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Sorry.
when you come up with ideas and you're like unsure, or you want to see what other people's, do you show other people your ideas and see what they feel about it? What's your viewpoint on that?
No. It's a great strategy, and I probably should do it more. But I'm a little bit of a antisocial butterfly. I'm really more of one to just trust myself, and although in saying that, there's a solid incubation period with my music in my earlier career where I wasn't really releasing a lot of music, but I was writing and writing and writing just constantly, probably between the ages of like 20 to 26. And I was on an internet forum which seemed like it was about as far away from the New Zealand music industry as you could get. And I would just subject my music for reviews where if anyone was able to make it past the technical imperfections of my home recordings, they would give me possibly some useful feedback on my songwriting. But that happened later. I think my original demos, and there were dozens of them, were very technically flawed. So I guess that was my sounding board then for that time in my career. Nowadays, I think I've got a lot of gut data, like I was kind of referring to before, and if I get excited about something and I execute it well, I feel good about it, and I'm content enough to share that with the world afterwards.
Perfect advice, because at the end of the day, I've listened to that album a lot, like years, and I have to say there are some absolute bangers on that, and that's one thing I really appreciate, is that I share that experience. When I feel good about something, that must mean that somebody else, it might not be everybody, but someone else is going to be able to connect with that.
Man, and there's never going to be everybody. You're never going to convince everybody that your music's worthwhile. But if you can convince 0.5% of the world's population, that's still hundreds of millions of people, isn't it?
Yeah, that's totally true. Look, man, thank you so much for your time, and hopefully the kids will appreciate this. We will have some others coming up, but again, thank you so much for your time, JP, for sharing some of your insight and knowledge. Go and check out this track and have a listen to what we've been talking about. I will post the lyrics online so you can have a talk about that, and we'll catch up again some other time. But thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thanks, mate. Thanks so much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
All good. See you later.
Cheers, guys.